Generally speaking, the feeling of this vehicle is still a typical Lexus dynamic experience. First, of the good aspects, I personally like the feeling of its suspension adjustment. This is also a relatively typical Lexus. It is generally comfortable and feels closer to the RX and Grand Highlander. It's good to make the suspension so comfortable without air suspension.
Although it is not as extremely comfortable as having an air suspension, you can still feel it try its best to reduce the amount of road conditions transmitted into the car.
You can feel that the bumps have been processed.
The most comfortable state is at highway speeds, where the car has a comfortable amount of sway through a smooth, undulating road.
The weight of this vehicle is 45-20 pounds, which is not much different from Grand Highlander, and it doesn't feel very heavy like the feeling of the EV.
It feels comfortable, but it's not a good idea for aggressive driving. Especially for high-speed cornering, the side lean control is relatively average, so must control the speed before entering the corner.
The car drives very quietly, and at highway speeds, except for the occasional wind noise, it's a very quiet vehicle. Basically, cannot hear too much noise outside. The tire noise control is relatively good. Overall, the quietness is just very Lexus. In such a quiet environment, coupled with this Mark Levinson audio, it is quite pleasant to listen to a period of life, although what I listened to was satellite radio. The steering feedback is also quite friendly and light at low speeds.
It's not the Toyota family's lightness of the past.
It is still light and has a certain toughness. The steering wheel is relatively stable at high speeds. What everyone is generally concerned about the TX350 is its power performance. Frankly speaking, I think the 2.4 turbo engine is sufficient in this vehicle, but to say how exciting it is, it can't even be said. My recent experience has mainly been with me alone, or with at most 3 guys, simply going to the market to buy something. But it has not been fully loaded or loaded with heavy objects. This is a premise. The overall feeling is that if you are willing to step on the accelerator deeply, the vehicle can feedback the expected speed-up effect. By pushing the turbo to work as early as possible and adjusting the transmission more diligently, the vehicle's speed acceleration is still reasonable. I think the performance at high speed is better than at low speed. If you put your foot harder on the accelerator, the turbo can actively work. When driving at a constant speed, if you step on the accelerator a little harder, the transmission will downshift to increase torque. The downshifts are also eclectic. If downshifting by 1 gear is not enough, then downshift by 2 gears quickly. If 2 gears is not enough, then quickly shift down 3 gears. In short, this gearbox is quite diligent in downshifting. Fortunately, the transmission is well adjusted, and there is not too much annoying frustration. The transmission is tuned relatively well and smoothly. Generally speaking, when driving at high speed, the secondary acceleration is also very rapid, and the vehicle speed is also very fast based on the speed limit, which is not ambiguous at all. Driving under the speed limit will not appear to be driving very fast, but will give the illusion that the car is driving slower, which feeling is still relatively advanced. But small displacement turbocharging is still small displacement after all. The saying that was circulated in the early years, the speed of acceleration mainly depends on the person, not the car. This sentence can only be said about its acceleration, but whether the acceleration process is smooth cannot be guaranteed. One of the most uncomfortable situations during my experience with this vehicle was when I was stuck in a highway traffic jam. It squirmed frequently. After the car in front started to speed up, you had to quickly start from a standstill to keep up. The vehicle was too shallow to step on the accelerator lightly. Feel lazy, you will subconsciously step on the accelerator deeply, and the turbo will start working, which starts working around 1800 RPM. You will feel that the engine is just starting to get excited, and then the car in front stop, and you have to stop the car, and this process is repeated over and over again. I feel that the vehicle goes from being weak to quickly becoming excited, and then immediately coming to a standstill. This process is quite uncomfortable, and it is easy to get yourself car sick. Another scene, it is rapid acceleration at low speed. At this time, you still need to give the turbo some time, although it is already working very quickly and actively. But there is no way. This is the working state of turbocharging. There have to be a waiting process, because the 2.4-liter self-priming power of this engine is insufficient. It is completely insufficient to drive the vehicle with this part of the self-priming power. Therefore, when the turbo is not involved in the work, whether it is creeping at low speed or accelerating from a standstill, the body feels heavy in the initial stage. But in fact, this vehicle is not heavy. At least it is not heavy in this level of gasoline vehicle. In my experience over the past few days, there have been times when I directly stepped on the accelerator to the bottom in order to achieve good acceleration in an instant. Another thing is that when this vehicle is driving at a constant speed on the highway, when you quickly release the accelerator, the sliding distance is not as long as other gasoline models of the same level. This feeling is not common in gasoline vehicles of this level. Another topic that cannot be avoided with this kind of small displacement turbocharging is the howling sound of the engine that does not have a very wide sound range when accelerating hard, which is indeed quite distressing to hear. If my dad heard me stepping on the accelerator like this, he would have to educate me, but there was no way. The original power of the engine did not allow it, so had to add a turbocharger and squeeze the engine hard. The engine hurts so much, scream aloud, which is understandable. The brakes don't feel very good. The brake disc size of this vehicle is the same as that of the Grand Highlander. The curb weights of these two are also similar, but I didn't feel this feeling so strongly when I drove the Grand Highlander some time ago. It feels like the brake pedal is very tight without any slack, but whether at high or low speeds, you can feel the point where the brakes really work is deep. Although you will feel the feedback of the brake when you step on it at the beginning, there is no empty position or clearance. But I feel that the first 1/3 to half of the trip will not have much effect. This vehicle had only been driven a few hundred miles when I picked it up. I also checked the brake pads and ruled out wear and tear as the cause, especially when I first got into the car. I was shocked when I stepped on the brake. I quickly parked the car on the side of the road, stepped on it hard to eliminate the problem of the vehicle, and then continued driving. Then after the vehicle started running, I found that if I stepped on the brake to half of its stroke, the brake would be particularly effective. I just realized that this might be an adjustment problem. It's fine. When running with one person or 3 people, I wonder if the situation will be worse if it is full loaded. I don't know if this problem is specific to this pre-production or if the product will be better. I will find another product for sale to try as soon as possible to see if it is consistent. I will report back to you at that time. Or it is the effect of Toyota's deliberate adjustment, but I really don't know what the purpose of this adjustment is. Why have to place the point where the brakes work in the middle of the trip? Or does it mean that only on the TX500H the effect will be better after the front brake disc is enlarged? I have been driving it for the past days. The fuel consumption indicated by the vehicle is about 20 mpg. Of course, because I am experiencing it, I drive more aggressively, so it can't be an example, only for reference. From a dynamic point of view, the suspension, noise control and steering feedback of this vehicle are among the same level of products at this price. I give it a thumbs up. It depends on how you look at power. If everyone has high expectations for power, if the budget is sufficient, and if you just want to buy a TX, I think you should look at the TX500H. If you just want to buy a big vehicle for daily life, TX350 is enough.